Hey everybody, on this episode of AFTERBUZZ TV Spotlight On, we're getting up close and personal with comedian Nimr. Let's do it.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Look at that, a little old school Super Mario in honor of our guest today. We'll get into more reasons why in just a moment. Hey everybody, welcome to AFTERBUZZ TV Spotlight On. This is the show where we get up close and personal with the people both in front and behind the camera and bring you all the great entertainment that you get to see on the movie screen, on your TV sets at home, or maybe on your mobile streaming device. I'm your host, Frank Moran. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie. My guest today, he's a comedian with a simple message. No politics, no religion, one love. Born in Lebanon, spent his formative years here in the States, and then returned to Lebanon where, oh nothing, he just became a pioneer in stand-up comedy in the Middle East there. Now he uses his comedy to help bridge two cultures to show that even though we may look different on the surface, underneath we all are struggling with the same issues and same goals and all wants of life here. So now his latest comedy special, No Bombing in Beirut, premiered on Showtime on October 7th and can be found on Showtime On Demand. It's also going to be airing in various different outlets as well in different countries, so be on the lookout for that. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest, Nimr.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm so happy that you guys started with Super. I know why you did.
Yes.
But what a great way to start. What a great vibe.
All right.
Right?
Excellent.
You don't
Yes.
get better than Mario. Thanks for having me.
The
Thank you
pleasure's
so
all
much. I'm so
mine.
happy to be here.
So what was it about Nintendo as a gaming platform that drew you to it as opposed to playing, PlayStation, Xbox, Sega Genesis?
Well, I mean, I was around when there was nothing but the Nintendo, right? So I was born in 83. I came to America in 85. And then I remember the first thing my parents brought home in terms of like a video game console, everybody was talking about it at school, was the Nintendo, you know? And I mean, what's not to love?
Very true.
From that, I mean, what more iconic thing than what we just heard as a tune does everybody know? And I remember even my dad, my mom, who used to hate, like, always like, oh, you're just playing video games. What are you doing with your life? I do remember very vividly one night walking out of my room and seeing them playing Super Mario Brothers, but with the volume down. They didn't want to admit that it was fun for them too. I just love video games. For me are incredible because I can turn on a game, especially if I turn on, like, from a retro console, I'll turn on Mega Man or Mario, and I'll immediately feel like I'm innocent again, like I'm 6 or 7. Glued to the TV, where you don't understand mortgage and debt and taxes, and none of that is in your spectrum. Yep. It's just this moment in that controller, and
Clearing that damn level.
How rare is it to be able to have something that can do that? I don't know of much that can.
So for me, I felt like even though I enjoyed Mario, it was for me it was GoldenEye. That was
on the Nintendo 64.
Yes, oh my
so
goodness.
many people. Yeah,
Yes.
I agree. For me, it was Mega Man 3 on the Nintendo.
Mega Man was always
Mega Man was my ultimate thing. I never got a Nintendo 64.
Really?
So I had the Nintendo when we left San Diego in '93 and went back to Lebanon. Consoles during that time would sell for 5-6 times the price of them here. Oof. So like a Nintendo 64 would cost you like $800. There was no way my dad was ever going to get me. Plus, we don't have electricity 24 hours a day. I talk about that in my special. And so I went from Nintendo to nothing to playing a bit of a Sega Genesis at my best friend's house for a while. Played a lot of Mortal Kombat. And then nothing, and skipped over everything until the PlayStation 2.
Wow.
Sadly.
Which
is why I love video games so much now, because I miss so much.
Yes.
So I just like anything I can get my hands on. I have a Nintendo that I play all the time. The Super Nintendo that's coming out. There's a company called Analog NT, or no, it's called, I don't know, they're called Analog or something. They made an Analog NT, which is a Nintendo built around an existing Nintendo.
Cool.
And it's like true. It's not emulation. You're actually playing with the cartridge, but it upscales to full HD, 60 frames per second, and it's crisp. It looks like it was made for it. And they just announced the Super Nintendo. Shout out to them. They just announced the Super Nintendo version. I pre-ordered it like within seconds.
Yep.
Because I never got a Super Nintendo.
Oh man.
So I want it, and I want to buy the cartridges because I never had that feeling that of putting it in and. So I'm very excited.
That's excellent.
I'm very excited.
So for you, was it once you get the PlayStation 2 and realize like how far games had come, you're like, I got to catch up on what I've missed? Or
Yeah. No, I had been playing, like, I'd go to a friend's house, we'd play, but I never, to be able to go home after work or after school and sit down and it's late and everybody's asleep and the lights are off and it's just the glow of the TV and you're sitting with the console playing a single player experience. And I remember on PlayStation 2, there was God of War and then Shadow of the Colossus and the incredible games. It's just like opening up an incredible book, and not having that for a while, it was really nice to get it back.
Oh, I can understand that. For me, it was on PlayStation 2. It was the Spider-Man game where you could kind of.
Oh,
free
are you
roam.
kidding me? Everybody, we would just free roam. That
Yes,
was
I loved it.
that was the coolest thing.
Oh,
I can't wait for the new one coming out.
Oh man, I like the costume. I know some people are like, I don't know, but I'm kind of digging the look on it.
I don't care what the costume looks like. If it's all goes down to when you're free roaming.
Yes.
Is it going to feel like on the PlayStation 2? Is it going to feel as liberating and joyous to do that? That's going to make or break the game.
Because I felt like every other subsequent Spider-Man game after that never recaptured that feeling, which was such a
No,
disappointment.
they didn't, and in some cases it was atrocious.
Yeah.
But no, I'm with you.
Oh, I loved it. So now, of course, you spent your formative years here in the States. You
Yeah.
get sucked into Nintendo.
Yeah.
When your family decides to move back to Lebanon, now that you don't have access to that on a regular basis, what do you, other than going to friend's house, what was your kind of outlet to kind of blow off steam?
Sports. I used to be really fat when I was here. I had asthma, and I was hyperactive. Probably the worst combination for a kid, because you get hyper and then you start coughing. So I was literally my own worst enemy. But when we went back to Lebanon, I couldn't stay at home, and a doctor there cured me of my asthma. Believe it or not, and he's now like the head of the allergen board of Europe, or like he's a big deal now. But his treatment, which he invented, I was one of the people who first tried it, and it worked.
Wow.
Yeah, from the first shot, I took shots with him. The first shot that I took with him, I never had an asthma attack in my life. While here, I was going to like Scripps Clinic and all of the best hospitals, like Cedars-Sinai and all of them, and I was just hawked up on cortisones. I was really, really large, like fat. So when I went to Lebanon, suddenly I could run around and I could do all of that. So it was nice that there wasn't that much electricity. I didn't feel too bad. It was just after the Civil War, for everybody wondering why not. And I started, playing basketball a lot and biking and tennis, and that was what I would do all the time, and it was awesome.
It'd be nice to be able to find out that you weren't like saddled with asthma. That all of a sudden you would take it.
It was very liberating.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, when I had asthma, I had video games. Now that I don't, I got real life sports. It was cool. it was a nice balance. You know what I'm saying?
So now, but once you got video games reintroduced, did you gravitate towards any of the sports games like Madden?
No, I never understand people who play sports games, because the sports games are emulations of the sports games. Like Madden is made to be as close to reality as actual football in the NFL. I don't understand why they don't have like football where you can like fly and shoot lasers and stuff.
Yes,
do you know what I'm
exactly.
saying? Like if you're gonna make a video game out of it, right? Why are you making it so hyper realistic?
Because I felt like the only one was like what, NBA Jams? Where
NBA Jam was awesome.
Yes, that you could go crazy.
Why isn't there like an NFL version like Mario Kart, but with NFL kart? Well, not kart, but I mean like
Yes.
NFL, but where you have huge moves and you can like throw a turtle at somebody. That's for me. But I understand a lot of people love them, so I don't want to lose them as potential fans.
But I would agree with you, because I also feel like the same way about racing games when it becomes like Gran Turismo and it's so realistic.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be able to ride off course and slide back in.
And people are like, no, but if you drift, like you can't drift like that realistically, and I understand. But it's not fun because I suck. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, but if I could be a car that could transform into a dragon, I mean, where's the imagination? Like when we were kids, all of these shows, the Ninja Turtles, Transformers, all these amazing, crazy concepts, they're missing from these video games. That's my point. Like if they would bring them back, if you could have like I don't know, man, take any sports game. I remember when on the Nintendo there was the hockey game. I'm talking Nintendo, and I remember the only reason we used to play that was because you could have a fight. Do you remember that?
Drop the gloves.
Did he drop the gloves and then you just button mash?
Yes.
And it was the fight. It was so cool. So I'm just wondering, like, why don't we get a hockey game where the fight part is still there, but it's like when it goes into fight mode, it's like this epic battle where you can hit people with pucks. Like, just do what you can't do in real life, and when you do that, the real life becomes even more exciting.
Very true.
That's my take.
Yeah, I would agree, because I remember just playing hockey. It was just all about like getting in the fight.
Yeah, and then you could shit on your friend if you if you beat him in the fight. They're missing out. They got to be kids again.
That's true.
Because even though we've grown up, I've always said that I was a kid, and now I'm a kid with a budget. That's pretty much all it is. Like I can now afford what my parents used to say no to.
Yep.
So I can, and these are games and stuff. So don't take the kid part away.
Absolutely. I feel like I can understand that. Just wanting to be comfortable enough in life where you can just get the things that you want.
Yeah.
And be able to
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that I don't like Zelda Breath of the Wild, the latest one that came out is it's everything. Like it's I'm a kid again. You know what I'm saying? And I can't wait for Super Mario Odyssey and all. I can't wait for these games, or even, I'm not saying they have to be happy. I love violent games as well. Doom was the coolest thing ever. I played that with my fiance, and we completely beat that game together with her, like, telling me where the secrets were. And it's awesome because it's so unrealistic. It's hyper-realistic is what I like to say. It's like, where else are you going to kill demons?
Now, is your fiance as into video games as you, or she just at least appreciates the fact that you enjoy them?
She appreciates it, and then I was very smart. I want her to be into video games, but I'm not trying to push her into it. So what I did is I bought her a Nintendo 3DS, and when I actually proposed to her, before that I was like, I have a gift for you to throw her off. I gave her the 3DS. So she thought that because it was around her birthday. And then when we started playing, we would play like Super Mario, but each one has their own 3DS. So she actually got really into it and got very competitive. Like, I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, I'd see her with her 3DS. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I just woke up and I couldn't go to sleep. And so it was cool. And I'm slowly trying to get her into games that way without like, let's play, or anything like that. I just I have it lying around. I surround her with games.
There you go. And just like the osmosis, kind of like,
yeah, and then hopefully it kind of sinks in, and it's working. it's working so far. And I keep telling her, I'm like, hey, when we get kids, don't you want to play with us?
Yeah.
Or do you want to be the uncool mom? So I'm using that as well.
There you go. Already throwing that. Who wants to be the uncool mom?
Who wants to be the uncool mom?
Nobody does. So I understand when you were here in the States, though, when you're growing up, that one of your comedy influences was Dana Carvey.
The influence.
So what was it about him? Was it just SNL? Was it a stand-up?
No, I mean, when I first noticed stand-up comedy, I was like, I think 5 or 4. And my parents were watching, comedy specials. I didn't understand anything. I just used to sit with them and laugh on cue. They'd laugh, I'd laugh, kind of thing. But I don't understand the comedy. It's way too mature. And they would record HBO specials where Dana Carvey would host, and he'd bring up other comics. And I remember when I was like 5, 5.5, I watched one of them, on VHS. Mm-hmm. And there was this bit that Dana Carvey did where it's about George Bush Sr. throwing up on the Chinese president, or the Japanese, I can't remember right now, which really happened. He didn't throw up on him, but he threw up in front of him. That actually happened. And it was this hysterical set, and I memorized it. I could recite most of it right now, and I'm talking when I was 5. And I'd go around telling everybody that set, like on repeat. And that's when people would be like, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd be like, either a Ninja Turtle or a stand-up comedian. I used to say it from that young. And it never wavered. I never rediscovered it. It was like, I want to be a stand-up comic. And I started doing stand-up when I was 17. So it was something, and it was always that set for Dana Carvey. I've met a lot of celebrities, but I think one of the few that I have yet to meet, because I'm intimidated by the thought of sitting with him, is Dana Carvey, because of the impact he had on my life. It's not for any other reason. Like, I've been around many people, and I appreciate everything they've contributed, and I'm always in awe of a lot of people. But Dana Carvey has more of a powerful. He's like a Nintendo console.
Yeah, I can understand.
You know
that.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if I see him, I'm going to be that kid again, and that can be pretty intense and amazing. And I can't wait for that to happen.
I know he does a lot of stuff over at West Side. I know
He
you've
does
done stuff as well too.
I did.
So.
I went to West Side. I didn't see him the few times that I went there, but hopefully one day. And I know we share a lot of common, like, publicist, agent, etc. It'll happen soon.
You would rather just have it by happenstance. You don't want to force the issue. If you run
it's kind of weird if you force it, or if it like naturally comes that we get to have lunch or something. But he's the kind of guy that it's not about meeting him or taking a picture with him. It's like, I'd actually really like to sit down and have like a lunch with him, like just to sit down and just be in his presence, because he has such a beautiful spirit and a powerful one on me that I just feel like I don't want to make an event out of it. I want it to be like 2 guys just
talking,
just sitting down and having a meal or a drink or something, whatever he would prefer. That would be for me, would mean a lot.
That would be really cool. It's a much more chance just to really kind of share what he's had, influence he's had on your life, and then just talk to him.
It's kind of like if you go and visit a country for the first time. I hate doing the what you must do top 10 list. I like to go, and I've done this in almost every country I've been to. I'll rent a house or Airbnb or whatever, or even in a hotel, and I won't look at any lists. I'll just go and just kind of like walk around, see people gathered at a place and sit down, have a beer on a street in Prague at 11 in the morning, because that's what everybody else is doing who doesn't speak English. And then just kind of like understand how they live. And I think if you meet anybody that's your idol or somebody who's had an effect on you, what's the point of taking a picture or doing? I don't want to show people. I want to experience being with this individual who has no idea that I exist, maybe, but has had such a profound effect, not only on me, but vicariously through me. Dana Carvey is responsible for stand-up comedy in the Middle East. He doesn't even know that. But I mean, if it wasn't for his influence, I wouldn't have done what I would have done. And stand-up comedy in the Middle East wouldn't have grown to what it would have grown to. And we wouldn't have done the nation-defining that we've been doing over the last 17 years. That's made it difficult for people like ISIS to divide Lebanon. So believe it or not, it's like, and he has probably no idea. But
that would be such an incredible conversation to see you have with him, just for him to understand.
And I hope it happens soon.
I'm sure it will. If you guys
I will. I definitely will. And I'm just very excited about it. I am. I really am. There's a few people that you'll hear in this industry that nobody ever has something bad to say about. And I'm very happy that Dana Carvey is one of them. Because I think it would really suck if he turned out to be a total douche.
Yeah, if you were, I mean, speaking like worst possible case scenario, you did find out, oh man, this guy's a jerk.
Yeah.
How would that kind of color your?
It wouldn't color it. It wouldn't decrease from the contribution he's made to my life, and because I didn't fall in love with his personality. I fell in love with his set, and you only hope that the set is that good because it stems from such an amazing personality, which in many cases it does, and in some cases it doesn't. as I've discovered since I got here 3 years ago. I don't want to name names, but there's been some big disappointments where you're like, oh man, not you.
No, I thought you were, but you're not. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you decide, your family decides they're going to move back to Lebanon, how did you take it? Were you
badly? Yeah, I mean, all I knew was America. I'm American. We came out here when I was 2, so I didn't know anything else. All my friends were here. I didn't speak any Arabic. I only spoke English. And now you're taking me to Lebanon. I get there, and it's just after a civil war. The room I'm sleeping in has bullet holes. My parents' room, there's like a crater in the window from a missile, and the priest who lives underneath us, his house is completely destroyed, and the streets, there's sewage in the streets, and it's right after a brutal 35-year civil war. What's happening in Syria right now? And we get there. I'm like, we came back for this? We left San Diego for this? And for the first few months, I despised it. And then I understood why so many people go back to that country and the magic in it. And I fell in love with it. And it was very difficult for me to come back here.
Really?
Yeah. Because Lebanon, a lot of people don't know, but Lebanon is really one of the most gorgeous countries on the planet. It's a Mediterranean country. It's not a desert. It's on the Mediterranean Sea. And it's all coastal. And it goes from coastal to mountains. You could literally swim. And then our parents always used to say, I can't believe I'm saying this, but you could swim and go skiing pretty much in the same day. I mean, you could be on a slope with snow in 45 minutes. And that's why a lot of Lebanese go to San Diego and come to California, because you can have those different climates, and it's close to the ocean. And whereas in Lebanon, same thing, the people are beautiful. It's the party capital of the world. I don't know if you've heard people call it the Paris of the Middle East. For many years before the Civil War, it was that. And we have partying in Los Angeles is the biggest disappointment because of having lived in Lebanon. Like the biggest in New York, nothing. It doesn't even hold a candle.
Really?
Yeah.
Just in terms of the sheer amount of people involved, or just how they throw it?
Not just how they throw it, the spirit of people who just want to have a great time, the artists that come over to the country. I mean, we got Elton John is coming right in a couple of months. Sia's been there, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I mean, everybody's been there. From DJs like Kygo or, singers and The Weeknd, and everybody goes. Wow. It's like Snoop Dogg, and you have such an amazing and it's a country that's smaller than San Diego County. And it has 4 million people in it. And it's sandwiched between Syria, Israel, and the sea. So we have like the worst stability neighbors, if you want to call it that. Like we're caught in so much political firestorm. And you have these people who all they want to do is be left alone to live. That's how I would define Lebanon. And once you get into a spirit of people who fight to be left alone to live, that's when you understand how to live. When you're here in the US, everything's secure, and you lose a lot of focus about what's important. But when you're in a place where nothing's secure, you know what's important. The priorities are there. So when people go to party, they don't go to party to get drunk. They go to party to ride the wave till like 7, 8 in the morning, to go to those clubs where the roof opens up at dawn and the party continues, and then they go have breakfast in this old kind of place where everybody's sitting together eating traditional Lebanese food. And then at 11 in the morning, you're like, should I go to sleep or should I just head down to the beach? And then you go there and everybody's there. Or like a New Year's Eve where there's parties all over the countries from the mountains to the coast, but not a single car accident. It's crazy how it's set together, but it's so individual and different. The spirit there is so unique. I haven't seen anything like it in the world. So that it took me a while to understand why my parents were like, no, we got to go back. We got to go back.
Well, I'm guessing, though, that your parents didn't go back for the parties.
My parents went back for the same spirit that fuels the parties.
Okay.
You know, where you have, Muslims, Christians, and Jews living together in a place smaller than San Diego County. Muslims, Christians, and Jews who killed each other for 35 years and then turned around and said, oh, you're still here? Like, no, oh, okay, I guess that didn't work. And then everybody was like, okay, so this doesn't work. And then became so strong. Kind of like if you go to a blacksmith and he's forging a sword, he just hammers it and hammers it and hammers that steel to make the perfect blade. We were that steel. We got hammered and hammered and hammered by things that were out of our control so much that we finally became our own blade. And that's what Lebanon is. It's this amazing amalgamation of people that you won't find anywhere else in the world. And I know people might think I'm just overhyping it or something, but it really is. It's not about, there are many beautiful countries in this world. I mean, geez, you drive down to California 1 and just have your breath taken away. If you get to San Luis Obispo or any of these places, Big Sur, there's a lot of beautiful places, but there's the spirit of people who will fight to survive is, you can't match that anywhere else. And Lebanon has that. And it has that, and it's full of people who are displaced by war like me. So that's why I still speak perfect English, because my friends didn't know how to read or write Arabic either. I had friends from Canada, from Nigeria, from London, from everywhere around the world, France and America and different places. And English is an official language, Arabic is an official language, and French is an official language. So everybody's speaking 3 languages, mixing between the 3. It's like it's its own unique place, and that is something that you can't really contextualize. Which in this special I try to, in a way.
When you describe it, it's a place where you can see churches, synagogues, and mosques. Right?
Side by side.
Yes.
And that's the biggest example that you've been lied to when people tell you that there can't be peace between people. Lebanon is living proof that it's like a phoenix. Like no matter what you throw at it, it's going to rise. Because if there was a time when Muslims and Christians and Jews, any one of those couldn't get along together, you couldn't build a synagogue without bringing down the other, or build a mosque without bringing down the church, or build a church without bringing down the mosque or the synagogue. And you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The fact that they're, in some cases, like 100 feet apart, and they've been there for like 300 years, 200 years, these churches, these ancient Roman ruins, these beautiful, poetic things still there and preserved throughout 35 years of civil war, not only tells you how much people used to get along together, but despite the worst wars, people still fought to preserve them. That says something. And these are, if nobody knows about this, then they'll think it's hopeless. But when they do, then they realize, oh man, if they could do it, we should be able to.
So when you moved back there, and you still say you never wavered from being, wanted to pursue comedy.
Yeah.
What was the opportunities, or just how did you kind of explore other?
There were none. There was no stand-up comedy as a scene. There were no comedy clubs like here in Hollywood. I can jump into the Laugh Factory, do 10, 15 minutes, try out a bit, then go over to the Comedy Store, do the same 10, 15 minutes, then come back to the Laugh Factory, do the Late Show, go to the Comedy Store, and just try out the same bit, go to the Improv, other hundreds of little clubs. If you're in New York, there's even infinitely more, and you can perfect and pound and perfect and rely that if your set isn't that good, there's none of that in the Middle East. So I'm in the Middle East. I want to do stand-up comedy. That's my goal. That's my dream. The only way I can do it is by being the only comic for the first God knows how many years. Every show I did was an hour and a half long.
Does that make it easier or harder?
Harder.
First,
harder, because you have to reinvent yourself. If I got a residency at a place, I did once at this place in a place in Lebanon called Jamaise, and I got a residency at a club there, and it was every Wednesday. And people loved my comedy so much, they would book a table for 3 months. They're like, we're going to come every Wednesday for 3 months. You had to reinvent 80% of the show every Wednesday.
Yeah, you can't do the same set.
No, you can't. And it's a week. It's an hour. At least you got to do an hour and 20, hour and 30 to justify people paying the money to come see you. And you have to do it so well for so long so that other people see this is a viable way of expressing myself. That was my goal. I was like, if I can establish stand-up comedy as a good way to vent your frustration instead of violence and war and all of that, if you can understand that you can have an idea that people don't agree with, but if you propagate it well enough, it can gain enough momentum that you can change the landscape, then that is the most effective change we can do here. That was my vision. And I figured if excuse me, if I did that, and I did it under the creed of no politics, no religion, one love, then I could create a safe space where people could get together, knowing that I'm not going to divide them politically or divide them religiously, but I'm going to challenge them with philosophy, with ideas of what is leading to the problems politically or religiously, and doing it through humor. Because if you sit down, if you're, let's say you're Muslim and I'm Jewish and my friend here is Christian and you're with one political party, I'm with another, I'm with a third. If we go into one place, walking in, we hate each other, let's say. We sit down, then we laugh together. When we walk out, it's going to be harder to hate each other. Because when you laugh with somebody, that is the biggest identifier that you have something in common with that person. You can't fake it. If I want to create a good vibe between the two of us and I tell a joke and it lands and you laugh, we've become so much closer than anything else I could do. And like that, comedy is the ultimate powerful force. So when ISIS is trying to get into Lebanon a few years ago, and we're doing a show and they're trying to exploit the Sunni Muslim population because they're Sunni Muslim, and they're trying to exploit them in Lebanon and drive a wedge by saying, oh, if you go against the Christians or the Shiite Muslims or the Jews in Lebanon and let us infiltrate you, we will give you more prosperity. If it wasn't for stand-up comedy and the efforts of many other artists in Lebanon, like myself, who are pushing towards removing that religious divide and that political divide, they would have found a foothold like they did in Iraq and Syria. But they couldn't in Lebanon, and they tried because the people were like, no, I'm not Sunni Muslim, I'm Lebanese. And that is very important. Right now, what you see in America, it's starting to become, I'm not American, I'm Republican, or I'm Democrat. That's dangerous. And America, I hope, doesn't need to learn a lesson the way we had to learn a lesson where things get out of control. I don't think there'll ever be a civil war, but I mean, I don't want there to even be violence. There doesn't need to be. America has enough example around it to see that you can never go extreme right, you can never go extreme left. And the reason you can't do that is because there's always going to be other people and your family. You can't deny that. The further you go in one direction, the more you're abandoning another. And I'm not saying the more right you go, the more you abandon the left. I'm talking about the people in the middle, the hardworking, everyday individuals who just want to put food on the table and don't understand politics and don't understand Shiite, Sunni, Muslim, and regional warfare in the Middle East and the things I had to learn about and understand to survive. The people who are just like, Denny's has something good, I'm going to go pick it up. The everyday Joe and Jane. Like, these people matter. And even if they disagree with you. So we learned that the hard way. And I hope like in this special, people will kind of take away the fact that no matter how far apart we are, like, if you don't find a common ground, that's on you.
True, because I feel like no matter what, even if some of you disagree with somebody, at the end of the day, there are shared human experiences that we all
need to eat.
Yes.
We all got to put food on the table. And that's the end of the story. That's the basic human need. We all get stuck in the same traffic. We all pay the same bills, and we're all taxed the same. That's the end of the story. So quit desperately finding ways to divide yourself, even by saying, oh, I'm not doing the division, they're doing the division. Stop it. Just stop being a child at this moment. And no matter how much you hate somebody, never, ever, ever take it to the extent where you start openly compartmentalizing them.
What I liked is you also did a talk in Harvard. Where you did that. And up there at the top of the speech, you were telling a story about meeting a gentleman there, and he'd been kind of like, oh, what's the big deal about Lebanon? I don't know anything about it. But then pulled out a cell phone and then started looking up about it. And you said if you had kind of flown off the handle right off the top, you would have missed that opportunity to make that connection with somebody.
Yeah, that was like a show like the one we're having right now. I was on a radio show. He had like 8 million listeners. It was all across Republican states. It was in Cleveland, and he was a big Republican, hated Arabs. And not because he's Republican. I'm just saying that particular individual was a Republican who hated Arabs and thought that pretty much what the talking lines that Trump were coming out about, where Muslims are evil and they're coming over here and they're going to take over. And I'm not even Muslim, I'm Christian. And he thought I was Muslim. I didn't even address the fact that I wasn't Muslim until I had him convinced that he was wrong, so he wouldn't think I was doing it. Saying I'm Christian, like I'm distancing myself, or saying like, no, I didn't want to take the easy way out. And just because I listened to what he was saying, and he gave me the opportunity. This guy hated Arabs, but he gave an Arab guy 30 minutes on his show. And I appreciated that. I appreciated that enough to listen to what he had to say. And he said some of the most insulting shit ever. But then slowly and surely, but within 15, 20 minutes, the guy realized he was completely misconstrued. And because no matter what political views you have, there's always a decent person there The show turned into the biggest, commercial for Lebanon. And that was wonderful.
That's the thing you could at least ultimately hope for, is that even if somebody does not agree with your beliefs or your point of view, that at least they will give you the opportunity to come in
If
and
somebody's
talk.
giving me the opportunity, then I respect that person. And if they're doing that, then... And I told him something at the top of the hour. I said, I understand that you fear Arabs, and if I were you, I would fear them probably more than you because of all the misinformation. I'm a firm believer that the problem isn't an American problem. It's an Arab problem, and we need to reverse fix that by, reaching out and doing proper PR and letting people know what's right and what's wrong. So this special came out. If somebody watches this special and that says something racist, I'll call him a racist, right, against Arabs. Or something prejudiced and bigoted against Muslims, or against anyone, really. But if somebody hasn't seen this special, I'll never call him that. I'll just call him heavily misinformed. Mm-hmm. But until I inform you and until you really see and you're convinced I'm not feeding you some propaganda, and you do your own research and you realize, okay, yeah, they don't fly on camels and shit over there. Once you realize, you'll realize that you've been lied to, and there's no greater unifier than finding out that somebody's been using you to get their own gain. And I talked about that in Harvard, how ISIS won, and America doesn't even know it because their original goal was to turn the two biggest allies against each other, and that's America and the Middle East. And that's why the talk was called Arabs, America's Imaginary Enemy, because we're fighting the same enemy, yet somehow ISIS has succeeded in convincing America that we're actually enemies. That is the victory. That is the biggest loss to every American soldier that dies there. That they're fighting a war that doesn't exist here. Right? So over here, the way people are construing the war is different than the war they're fighting there. The troops, the boots on the ground, they know what's going on. But people here don't understand. It also leads to a lot of problems with veterans coming here where people don't understand what they're doing. They don't see eye to eye with what they're seeing. So the better informed people are, the more wars are won quicker, and you don't have to fight as much.
So for you, I mean, doing a set here in the States, it's still spreading your message there. But if for some reason the show doesn't go over very well, it's like, okay, that's all right. But back in Lebanon, when you have up against like the incursion of ISIS, kind of trying to separate.
Well,
everybody.
that example, when we were doing that show, 4,000 people showed up, and that was in the height of ISIS doing suicide attacks, trying to derail the entire country, hitting tourist attractions and doing the worst they could. 4,000 Lebanese people showed up and gave them the biggest finger in the world. Do you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Figuratively, they basically came out. You were throwing the worst you could. The enemy was throwing the worst they could at us, and we went to watch a comedy show. There is no bigger way to tell somebody, go fuck yourself, than for them to throw everything they have at you and for you to respond with a joke. That is the ultimate way. I mean, the Japanese would never show their enemies the satisfaction during war of feeling pain, right? And that was because you never gave them that pleasure. They would laugh upon death. And that is the ultimate form of power. Sense of humor. Humor is the biggest slap in the face to anyone. Because if you're trying to hurt me, you're trying to bring me down, you're trying to belittle me, and I'm in a great mood, what does that say about you? It shows how weak you are. You couldn't even change my mood. So that's the power of comedy. And we told ISIS to go fuck themselves that day. Sorry for the crude language.
No, please don't censor at all. What I liked about that special is that at that point when you get to that, because you filmed it both in Lebanon and the States.
Yes.
At that point in the special, it kind of split screens, and you get to see from both locations
Yeah.
at that moment in there. And I really like that little touch where you just kind of
Thank you.
basically just kind of realize, like, no, we're talking to everybody at this point. Not
Because
just one.
I wanted people to watch the show. So it's filmed in Beirut and it's filmed in Los Angeles. In Beirut, there was 5,000 people. Los Angeles, 2,000 people. So they're big crowds. And I wanted people, I'm wearing the same suit, and it's the same show. And we cut in from one place to the other, sometimes within the joke, several times. And I wanted people to watch it and forget and feel like it's one show. Because I figured if you see a show filmed in two locations, but you feel like it's one show, right, with two people who are on opposite sides of the world, but it feels like one show to you, then how different could we possibly be? That was the point. I wanted to convey that message visually, not just in the comedy. When I did that split screen, it's to yank you back out and remind you about perspective and how we have people, black, white, American, Arab, Asian, and I'm showing all these different people and this one message that's coming out and everybody's watching and listening and agreeing with it. So stop acting like we can't do better because we can. And this special, I called it No Bombing in Beirut because I wanted people to know that Beirut is a beautiful place. But I also wanted them, to do the stand-up comedy thing, like you're not bombing on stage. Like it's going to be actually funny. And I wanted people to be intrigued, like a comedy special called No Bombing in Beirut. What is this about? I wanted it to be a message, a love letter from the people of Lebanon, because I represent those people to America. But I also wanted it to be a love letter from America to the people of the Middle East, because I represent those people as well. I'm both. And how could I be both and be totally happy and we can't get along? So that was really it, because there's strength to be had when America is allied with the right people. And the wrong people have broken an alliance that could be very powerful. And I can't, as an American, I can't allow that to happen. And as an Arab, I can't allow that to happen. People are dying unnecessarily. And if I can change that with comedy, that's what I'm going to do. So that's what No Bombing in Beirut was. I mean, we opened up with the inaugural address for JFK.
Yes.
And I took that line where he says, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do from your country. And people don't know this, but it was written by a Lebanese guy.
It wasn't until you actually showed the rest of that.
The rest of the saying that
Yes.
it was written by Gibran Khalil Gibran, who many people might know. He wrote The Prophet and many other popular books. He immigrated to the U.S. in 1915 or 24, I'm not sure. And he lived in New York. He's a Lebanese, very famous Lebanese author who became a Lebanese American, just like myself, and wrote that line in I think it was the New York Times at the time, about the Egyptian uprisings happening at the time. And years later, the speechwriter for Kennedy, who was a fan of Gibran Khalil Gibran, has read that and incorporated that and created this great American moment. And people were like, oh, are you saying that it was written by Lebanese? I'm like, no. What I'm saying is that we are at our finest when our paths cross. This great American moment wouldn't have happened if a Lebanese guy hadn't immigrated to this great country, and had there not been an uprising in Egypt, and had that speechwriter not read the popular works of Gibran Khalil Gibran, had not so many things not aligned for that moment to become immortalized as one of the great inaugural speeches of all time. So it was the perfect way to kind of remind people, stop being against the crossroads. You get what I'm saying? About people who are exactly like you.
Yeah, it's. I'd rather focus on what unites us rather than what everything that's kind of.
I mean, everything unites us. Jesus Christ. There is so little that divides us that it's funny that we find it.
Well, we will work hard to find any
It's
reason.
unreal.
Well, I feel like here in the States, we will find any reason more now to be snarky about something, to criticize, to tear down.
I put a lot of the blame on the media here. I mean, I heard that the guy who's running CNN now and the way that they split up their panels used to work at ESPN. So, and Fox is competing with CNN. They're copying the same format. You got 8 people discussing a topic in like 10 minutes. Look what we've discussed. Imagine we were 8.
Yeah,
How are we going to get anything across? All we're going to do is just hit the buzzword. So I'm going to say that thing, they're going to say that thing, and we're going to inflame everyone, because the more people who are inflamed, the more clickbait we get, in a way, is the more people are going to tune in. And that's what they're doing. They don't care about America. They care about ratings, because they're comfortable knowing that America's going to be fine. Whereas in Lebanon, where we're not comfortable knowing that Lebanon's going to be fine, when things get heavy, the media tones down.
Really? So
Yeah.
So there's nothing.
No, the politicians go out and say, stop it. Like they unite. They like, no. And they a lot of them are incorporated. The media is very propaganda-ish. So like Republicans have Fox TV, and over there in Lebanon, you'll have the same thing. They'll tell their people, tone it down, because they know that this is dangerous right now. And this kind of danger here is not being recognized. And I don't know that there's a way to address it. The only way to address it is that the people who are watching this become more aware that they're being used as opposed for ratings, to sell advertisement. Your fear is being elevated to sell an advertisement, to pay bills. That's the bottom line. If they could do that without doing the fear, that would be great. I don't think they can. So in response, what you should do is become more aware of your surroundings, so they can't, utilize you that much. I'm thinking of the right word. It's not utilize. They can't, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking, but they can't prey on your fears too much and kind of like use you. Just
because I feel like
exploit. That's the word. They can't exploit you as much.
What I feel like is when you even listen to some people that, for example, voted for Trump.
Yeah.
And they will have done no research. They have done nothing, but they just, what he said is that's it, and I'm not going to be willing to look in and do any
and they
research.
were used. I mean, you got all of so we're finding out about the Russian troll farms that were putting out all this stuff about Hillary Clinton. So if you read that Hillary Clinton was a pedophile who was running a pedophile shop out of a pizza shop or what, how are you going to vote for her, right? And if you hear Trump, who did a brilliant job, I was calling him as a winner. There was a podcast that actually put out about 6 months before of me saying why he was going to win and how he was going to win, and he won for the same reason. He was brilliant in simplifying his message, which was none, but which was very easy to understand. Hillary's out there spewing out statistics. 80% of the people in America are not good with numbers, and they're not good with complicated subjects. They just want to know, easy stuff. And Trump spoke to them directly. As a comic, I know this more than anyone. We have an art of taking a complicated idea and breaking it down so that the most people can laugh at it. That's what we do. So seeing Trump get up there and giving him full credit for that, he was able to take complicated ideas and brush them aside by simply ignoring them and saying something very simple like, we will make America great again. And from marketing point of view, he just branded that America wasn't good with the Democrats, and people started to hear it over and over and over, and it seeps in. And that was it. And the response was love trumps hate, which is not true. Love does not trump hate. Ever.
You don't think so?
No. Have you ever seen Dragon Ball Z?
You know, it's one of those. I know of it. I've never really watched it.
Any show where there's a huge confrontation and, you know, they're coming and he's like, you never see the other guy go, if you only open your heart right now.
That's true. If we hug this out, we'd be
no,
good.
what's going to happen is you're going to use more power to overcome that power. You have a more disciplined, accurate hate. I think my new tour deals with that. My new tour is about the power of hate, the positive power of hate that people don't realize. That they don't realize that this is the reason why a lot of people have become professional athletes, because they hated the circumstances they were in, or have become successful politicians because they hated the circumstances their surroundings were put in, or they've become inspirational figures. Hate doesn't have to be negative. But what you have to recognize is that if somebody's saying something to you, before you accept that that person's saying something good or bad to you, you need to understand the dynamics of it. And the problem with Trump is that the success of Trump was that the fact that America's educational system doesn't dive into details about anything. It gives you it's set up for you to have a basic understanding of everything before you choose your discipline. You go on to higher education and you hone it, which is amazing for industrial manufacturing, amazing for all of the progress America has made in technology and all the other sectors. But that's a big problem when it comes to understanding complicated matters. Because if you come and you try to now tap into several different disciplines and present an idea, it's going to be harder to convey. So Trump had a huge advantage by not even going there and just saying, the Mexicans are coming, they're ruining our stuff. That's it. So all the people who hate Mexicans, or all the people who have no problem with Mexicans, how many Mexicans voted for Donald Trump because they believed they weren't those Mexicans he was talking about? They're like, we're the good Mexicans. What about those Mexicans? Because they've bought and bit into the propaganda. Mm-hmm. So how do you fight that? You don't fight that by calling those people racist. You fight that by changing and re-educating everybody. Unfortunately, that's not a short-term solution, but that's the only way. The Democrats, if they do that, they'll win it back.
It'd be nice. It would be nice.
But if they don't, we're looking at Trump for another 4 years. And the reason we're looking at that is because he has a connection, and you guys understand more than anyone viral success. It's hard to topple that. No matter how reasonable you're trying to topple it with something is. He has a huge momentum going. The only way to fight that, if you want to fight that, is to do something very, very powerful. And just being anti-Trump isn't good enough. You can't be positioning yourself as vote for me or else you'll vote for Trump. That's how you're going to lose. You have to give a credible alternative.
So when you see other comedians like, say, Stephen Colbert on Late Night, where I think of all of them, and Jimmy Kimmel is certainly more recently, but I feel like Stephen Colbert has been really just leading the forefront in terms of
100%.
comedy. Yes,
100%.
So when you see talk like that, do you feel like
he's doing it for the ratings? I'm not Stephen Colbert's agenda. Look at everybody's agenda. Trump's agenda was to win the presidency, and I can't believe people don't realize that. That's all he wanted. So when you take a man and you say, this is a guy who wants to become president, then you'll understand all of his moves, because you'll know that everything he does is going to be to win that presidency. It's not to win it as a Republican. It's not to win it as a conservative person accepted by the Christian. It's not. It's to win it. End of story. He'll do whatever it takes to win it. That is a very dangerous enemy. The same thing, Stephen Colbert, his agenda is ratings. And I'm not criticizing him. Anybody who watches Late Night, I mean, that's his career. And he happens to also come from a political background. He was doing the Colbert Show, and he was with Jon Stewart before that. So it's a natural fix. What I like about Colbert and what he's doing is he's good at it. You get what I'm saying? Yes. Like, he has an understanding of politics. So I like the fact that Colbert is doing what he's doing because he has the knowledge to back it up. What I fear is the other people who are riding the bandwagon and don't have the knowledge to back it up. And there are a few. But Colbert is doing it, and it's very clear. So if you like Trump, you're just not going to tune in. I don't see Stephen Colbert as the divider. And I don't see him as the uniter. He's not trying to be. He's just making jokes. And at the same time, a lot of people who are very have a lot of anxiety about what's going on are finding a lot of comfort through him. So that's good. But I don't look to Colbert. I'm trying to look to the people whose job it is to unite, and what are they doing? And they're not being able to overcome Trump's divisiveness.
Because I'm curious when you like using comedy to kind of
Because they're fighting the divisiveness with love. It doesn't work.
When you see how do you feel like that is only because he's on a platform, Stephen Colbert, wanting to get ratings, that he certainly is going to do what's going to help gain viewership and gain ratings
and
for
he
him?
doesn't like Trump. I mean, I'm not saying he's
Yes.
disingenuous. He actually obviously doesn't like Trump, and for very good reason. And the jokes he makes and the things he says are correct. He's not lying. He's not Fox, who come out and say some of the most outlandish stuff I've ever heard in my life, like 750 million immigrants are going to come into America from the Middle East when the total population isn't over 200 million. So there's none of that going on. So he's very credible in what he's doing. But when I see somebody like Colbert, would if I was there, would I do it differently? Obviously, because I'm a different human being. But that's who Colbert is. And he's a good political digester of information. When you have somebody like Trump who's so divisive, you need somebody like Colbert to be able to stand up against that. But you need other people to, Colbert is like one member of an army. And people forget that. If you want to take out Donald Trump, Colbert is one cog in the military machine that you have up against him. Where are the other people? Where are the freaking Democrats?
You would like to see more of that.
I'd like to see more, something spectacular. As spectacular as Donald Trump. Donald Trump was spectacular. He owned the ratings. He owned all the coverage. He was able to sweep the nation, the world, the highest rating, 150 million people tuning into a presidential debate. When the hell does that happen? He was spectacular in the actual meaning of the word spectacular, not in the spectacular like I had so much fun. But it was something awesome, in awe to watch and to observe. You can't fight that with just being like, it's okay, it's going to pass, just get through it, be good. No, somebody needs to rise to the occasion and face that hate, that divisiveness, that opponent with something equally and more powerful than that. And nobody's done that yet.
I always feel like, especially with the Democrats, like even with Obama too, because it was frustrating at times. But I feel like we're in the middle of the American president when Michael Douglas is just kind of like, hey, he's capitulating to everybody, and then he has that moment right there at the end where he stands up in there in the press room and he gives his speech, and you're like, damn, this is what we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for the Democrats
To have that moment.
Yes.
But they haven't. Trump has that moment every day. If excuse me, if you voted for Trump, you're very happy. I mean, not all of you. But there's some people who voted for Trump for the extremism. They're incredibly happy. You don't mean to tell me white nationalists think he's the best thing since Jesus Christ? Like, they love him. And he's doing what he said he would do. And he does it so bombastically. And he does it without shame. And he never treads back, that he makes you, the voter, feel substantiated. Democrats aren't doing that. And it shocks me. It puzzles me. And the only reason I can think of is because they don't have anyone who's good enough. I'm not, and people have to understand, I'm not saying Trump is good or bad. I'm actually not entering the debate. I don't want to give my opinion on this, although it's kind of clear, but I don't want to. What I'm trying to say is that if you have an interest in taking down Trump, it's not happening. And if you have an interest in keeping Trump in power, it's also not happening. Because he's in power now because the Democrats suck. That's another thing people don't realize. True. Because the Democrats aren't being able to put up a good alternative. That's why he's in power. So Trump isn't doing great. He's just doing better than the Democrats.
Now, we could talk more politics, but before we wrap up, I want to mention you also do charitable work as well, too. I know you give big shout-outs to another Lebanese-American, Danny Thomas, for the work that he's done.
Of course.
And you also do stuff to raise money for, to help families.
And his
animals,
organization,
like
too, the Children's Cancer
Yes.
Center of Lebanon.
So how did you get involved, and what are you working on currently to help, where can people kind of help you to help them?
Well, right now, basically every year we choose an organization, and I don't usually talk about them because I like to, I don't want people to think I use it to market myself.
Oh, absolutely.
But I can definitely say that, any of the I think as an artist who's been blessed with success, that if everything becomes about money, you really aren't much of an artist. And the best way for you to be able to reconnect is not to give back. It's not about giving back. I don't like that word. It's about using your talent and your skill that you've been given and that you've worked on and you've honed to do more with it. Because if you're gonna come in and do shows and sell out and do all that stuff, that's great. And now you have free time. What are you gonna do with it? And you could do selfish things or you could do selfless things. And the people who put on the makeup and their clothes and plan their night out and buy a ticket for your show and find a babysitter and do all of that to come out and see you, that is like the most selfless thing ever. So what are you doing that's on their level? And some artists are like, I go on stage and I work hard, and that's fine. These are people who do that for you and work a 9-to-5 job and deal with incredible pressure, and you're not. So give back in a way is more, it's better to say do your duty and make sure that you help elevate others. And for when it comes to organizations, I mean, I've worked a lot with the Children's Cancer Center in Lebanon mainly, and Donnie Thomas started the St. Jude's Cancer Center, a Lebanese stand-up comic, and who was American, Lebanese American. And I do a lot of work with MS, patients of MS, multiple sclerosis, and do a lot of work. Right now, we're actually working with some comedians for hurricane victims here in America. So, of course, I'd implore everybody to help out however they can. And nobody's going to make a difference. It's the collective. So, but that doesn't mean that you can discount yourself from the thing. You need to kind of put yourself into it, because without you, there is no collective.
Sure, just like voting too, where it's like, oh, somebody else is going to vote. I don't need to. Why do I need to?
No, because it's the spirit, man. The more people that, it's like if you believe in God and you believe in prayer, that's the whole point of a congregation in a church, right? If you put the whole of a congregation, be it a church, a mosque, a synagogue, the grouping of people to pray is done to amplify that spirit. That's the point of it. When you're meditating in a group, it's done to multiply that spirit. Or you go to the mountains and you sit with nature, because that's where the spirit is so whole and wholesome, so you can amplify it. So if you're not going to do your part, you're basically, your parents are going to shout at you because you didn't go to church on Sunday.
The time has flown by.
I had a lot of fun.
You don't have to say that.
Thank you.
Once we get off there, you can really let them know how you feel. That's
no,
fine.
I really did. I don't. It's seldom that I get to talk about some deep stuff here.
Awesome.
So thank you.
That's
for
the whole point of
having
doing
me.
something like this. So we can get, as we like to say, like dive deep. And everything that makes you tick.
Thank
there.
you.
Absolutely. So, of course, Nimr's comedy, No Bombing in Baghdad, is out right
Beirut.
now.
See, it's close. It works.
Yeah.
No bombing in Baghdad, too.
That thing bombs over Baghdad, and that's not the right. We don't want to do that song.
I love that song.
No Bombing in Beirut debuted on Showtime October 7th, so you can find it on demand as well. And it's also going to be, I know it's available on Canada as well, too, and it's going to be
Crave TV and the Movie Network in Canada. Just open up your TV and write Nemr, Nimr. It'll pop up.
Follow Nimr Comedy on Instagram, because he walks you through. He does a nice post where he walks you through how
you
to
saw
find
that?
it. Yes. Very easy.
All social networks, Nimr Comedy, Nemr Comedy. Love to see you there.
Ladies and gentlemen, my guest has been Nimr. Please follow him. He's not just funny, he's also charming and incredibly kind as well.
You're very kind. Thank you. Thank you.
And do you have a handle if anybody wants to fight you online?
Nimr. It's Nimr Comedy. So my website's nimrcomedy.com, and all handles on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Nemr Comedy.
And if they want to race you in Mario Kart?
It's also Nimr Comedy.
All
You
right.
can find me on Nintendo.
Fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've been your host, Frank Moran. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie. We'll see you back here next time with another episode of AfterBuzz TV Spotlight On, right here on AfterBuzz TV.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Sweetek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments and questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.